everyone for joining us today. We've had a fantastic response to our senior leaders interview series, and today we have had the pleasure of being joined by international Professor Maryline Filippi from France. Maryline is in New Zealand attending the International Food and Agribusiness Management Association conference in Christchurch this week, and I was there as well, and I have to say some of the findings from the younger generation, unbelievable. Yeah, really insightful. Anyway, we've got the pleasure of being joined by Maryline today. She's an active member of the ICA board, so that's the International Cooperative Alliance board, and the International Cooperative Alliance Europe body as well. So today we're going to discuss the topic of European cooperatives' response to their sustainability obligations. We will hear from Maryline on how European and French cooperatives are facing the global challenges arising from climate change and delivery on their sustainability responsibilities to achieve ESG and SDG requirements. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting session, so thanks so much, Maryline, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Kiaora. It's a great pleasure and honor. Thank you, Russ, for your invitation. I'm very pleased to be here and to share with you some point and some information, and I want very well improve my knowledge in New Zealand agriculture and how do you make the job, and your country is fantastic. I remember I'm professor of economics in France and associate researcher at the National Institute of Agronomic Research in Paris. And I work on agricultural cooperative maybe 55 years ago now. And I developed research on how the farmers join together, how they develop collective action in order to produce and compete on international market, but also how they reorganize the supply chain and the value chain in order to develop their production, but also to develop the sustainability and how they can govern and develop a better governance of for their members. So I am a member of the ICA board for developing research, and I met Elena Garnaska. She's a professor in Massey University. And during a stay in the US, working with Professor Michael Cook, that is well known here, developing relation with Frontera, in order to better know how cooperatives in the world are functioning and how we can support farmers in order that they develop their competitiveness.
Oh, that's fantastic. And as you say, you know, we've got some fantastic professionals at university or academic level here in New Zealand, but we always need more. So it's great to have you on our shores. So just in terms of Europe, can you share a little bit more with us in terms of the industries that apply the co-op model in Europe and some of the similarities and differences to how you've seen it being applied here in New Zealand?
Yeah, New Zealand faces a number of challenges: producing and developing its agricultural and food industry, respecting environment, innovation, and exporting. That you are very huge exporter, for example, in wine or in dairy industry and kiwi industry, food. So cooperative action enable to meet these challenges by working together. And however, we need to know how to better work together and to be more competitive. So I would like first to give you a better idea about the importance of the cooperative model in the world, because it's increasingly developing in Europe and it represents a significant part of European industry. So just let me give you some figures to put things into perspective. I'm referring to the World Cooperative Monitor, that's which the ICA reference for data. And the World Cooperative Monitor raised that the economic size and the sustainability of cooperative and mutual around the world is increasing more and more. and they give the opportunity to perform the sector on the global scale. So, for example, in this last publication, they account 250,000 cooperatives in the world. That means 5 million employees and 141 million of members. That's huge. That's very interesting that we can see in the top 30 companies in the world. Europe have 168 companies and France 42. And in Asia, it's 41 with a 5 in New Zealand, very famous in the world. So the most representative sector for cooperative model, it's insurance, but also agriculture and food, accounting for 33% respectively. So in terms of turnover, the production cooperatives represent 42% and mutual 88%. So regarding this key figure, we can see that cooperative model is a very powerful model. And if we focus on agriculture and food sector, we include a lot of enterprise in the world in all sectors, fishing, dairy industry, meat industry, a lot of value chain are engaged. And for example, the Frontera is number 8 in the global monitor top. So in Europe, you have 20 a lot of cooperatives that they are structuring the food chain. For example, you have more than the market share are very important, and you have more than 50% in dairy industry, in wheat, in beverage. So I'm not really familiar with the cooperative sector in New Zealand, but what I know is that it's very different between the model, cooperative model in New Zealand and in Europe. For example, in Europe, you have different legislation about cooperatives. In some countries like such as France or Spain or Germany, you have specific law for cooperatives. So you have cooperative statutes which give you rights, but also obligations. And in other countries like Netherlands, in fact, enterprise decide if they prefer to adopt a commercial statute or a cooperative statute. It's based on the enterprise declarations. However, all these enterprises operate according to cooperative principle. That is very important to better understand that the way to develop an enterprise, a cooperative enterprise, is based that a shared ownership between members and democratic decision making. That is the two main principles that you can find in all over the world. So the United Nations, for example, this year recognized that cooperatives and usually the unit that we call social solidarity economy develop a real efficient economy and the capability to contribute to achieving the objective of sustainable development. So to be short, I would say that cooperatives are enterprise, competitive enterprise to survive on the market, make benefits, but in the same time, they provide services to their members. And that's very interesting because they are different from commercial enterprise. Commercial enterprise, they just make profit and that's it. But for cooperative, they have to give benefits, survive on the market, but in the same times to develop benefit for their member. And if I look to and give you more information on France, let me check just a few points. We have more or less 2,100 French cooperative, agricultural French cooperative. That means that they bring together 3 out of 4 farmers. They own 1 out of 3 brands, and they produce. that's very important for her and for you too. 1 out of 2 bottles of wine. That's a lot, and it's excluding sparkling wine, but it's very, very important. We have 700 cooperatives certified organic, and we employ more than 119,000 people in France, but also around the world. So cooperatives are very important, structuring supply chain and value chain for product, for food, but also for non-food products. And in France, they consider that cooperatives are very traditional because they respect the ICA principle. That means ownership by a member only. But we are committed in their activities, and they apply the democratic principle, 1 person equals 1 vote. So the specificity of French cooperative agricultural co-ops, it are developed into strong and powerful group. That means that they are more and more controlled commercial company, and the main challenge is how they farm, keep the control of the group, and how they can develop in a cooperative way. And for example, if we compare to the States, France, we have only 1 cooperative statute, whereas in America, we have 7 statutes. So it's very interesting to learn how they manage their cooperative and how they can improve the competitivity of the cooperatives. So I say that for give you a picture of the importance of the cooperative model for the world and for New Zealand too.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you're saying about the piece of legislation that you've got, because obviously in New Zealand we've got 5 different pieces of legislation, but the main one is the Co-op Companies Act, which is quite broad. I like the fact that in France you've got a whole lot more viticulture, winemaking co-ops. I think we need more in New Zealand.
Yeah. During the conference, we have a CEO of the chairman of the only one wine co-ops in New Zealand. It was great.
Yeah, he's that's Mike Brown, who's actually the chair of Cooperative Business New Zealand. So a very interesting story in terms of their sustainability journey. I guess in terms of the European co-ops, we talked a bit about the industries. There's also the other side of co-ops in terms of how they're constructed, whether they're employee-owned or supplier-owned or consumer-owned, and what applications look like in terms of commercial versus social enterprises. The majority of co-ops here in New Zealand are some of our most successful commercial businesses. So it'd be interesting to understand the nuances in France in terms of the ownership structure, and then in terms of commercial versus social enterprises.
Yeah, I think the fact that the world is going through an unprecedented crisis linking to climatic change and the increase of economic and social inequalities underline the power of the cooperative in all the sector: housing, consumer, retail, food, transport, everywhere. Cooperative make great job. So in France, we have, and in Europe in particular, we have also the Ukraine conflict. Actually, we increase the pressure on the energy sector, for example. So the world is changing, and it need to change. And so we need solidarity more than ever. And faced with this catastrophic economic, but also environmental and social situation, cooperative and mutual are continuing to develop. That's be sure. And if I give you a broad picture in terms of European strategy, for example, in Europe, we have the European Green Deal that set how to make the Europe first climatic neutral continent by 2015. It's map a new sustainable and inclusive growth strategy to boost economy and to improve people's health and quality of life, care of nature, and leave no one behind. That's very important because in different countries, democracy is in difficulty. So the Europe want to develop sustainable food support for food system, for example, and so they developed the farm to fork strategy at the heart of the Green Deal and first address comprehensive challenges. It's the reason why they put different sector also with agriculture. It's not only the food sector, but it's also over sectors in relation with healthy people, healthy society, healthy planet. And we develop also the Commission agenda want to achieve the sustainable development goals. And so they think about support the digitalization and the sustainability twin transitions. That means that in fact, they reorganize the way to support enterprise and people. They try to have a complex, holistic approach to help enterprise to achieve the sustainability goals. So for social economy, they develop an action plan in order to create the bridge between different sectors and to support also the enterprise with new funds, new policy, new initiative. And for example, for sustainability, we have global certifications from ISO, environmental and management system, but also we have a lot of initiative to increase the corporate sustainability reporting directive in order to show how cooperative and how enterprise can better achieve and can better do things. So if I give you just an example for cooperative, I can say that in fact they combine that's mean labeling for corporate social responsibility, how enterprise can be more responsible. And so this labeling, it's developed by at the European level in order that every company can improve and develop the social responsibility in environment, social, and economic. So it's very important that all these enterprise develop good practices to be more responsible. You can have also a green taxonomy or extra financial reporting. You have a lot of things organized in order to pave the way for the sustainability goals. But you have also the Science-Based Target Initiative for reduce the emission of greenhouse emission. And for example, you have cooperative that decide, they explain how they can reduce the direct impact, indirect impact, and what's by their activity, they develop a community and supply chain more responsible. I don't know if you want more example or.
No, I'm intrigued because here in New Zealand, we've got a farm to plate strategy, which is called Hei Wakanoa. And the whole purpose of that is looking at achieving those sustainable development goals. Yeah. And it's interesting what you're saying in terms of support from government. It tends to be very business driven here, with the government sitting back, which is quite challenging. So, you know, we'd love to see a little bit more investment from the government to support delivery of more of those outcomes. But, you know, it's, as you say, in France and here in New Zealand, co-ops are very powerful, strong, powerful group, and in particular in the agri sector, just being such a major main player. So yeah, so in terms of changes you're seeing in the co-op and mutual space in Europe, do you think it's growing or shrinking? I think you said it was growing.
Yeah, much, because in fact, working together, it's the best way in order to achieve these goals, because it's very costly. You need a lot of money, you need a lot of competency, you need to involve the generation. So working together, it's a good way to achieve that, and to support the way to change the supply chain and to reorganize the food sectors. That is very important for all of us.
Yeah, and I think we're definitely seeing growth here. I mean, I would get probably 1 or 2 inquiries a week about establishing a co-op to solve a problem. And so to your point about collective thinking, that's the only way we're going to make the change, if we all come together to work together. So yeah, I think the timing's absolutely spot on. So it'd be really good, Maryline, to just gain some insights and lessons into how sustainability can be better implemented here in New Zealand based on what you heard at iPharma. And what are the European co-ops and mutuals' response to their sustainability journey? Have you got any examples on the approach and priority and speed of change?
For co-ops, you say? For example, we have a cooperative in sugar beet. They decide to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 20% by ton of sugar beet, and is energy consumption by 8% by ton. So it's a lot. And so they decided to reorganize the factory and the organization, the supply chain, and they become a leader of decarbonization of these sectors. So they reduce the greenhouse emission by 25% in 2020, in saving 2,060 million tons of CO2 of gas. And so they invest a lot in innovation technology. They encourage the logic of circular economy and biomass production. That means that in fact, cooperatives have a lever to change the reorganization of the supply chain. And in this way, they can improve the competitiveness economic, but also environmental and sustainability. And so it's very, I think it's very important, because I know that New Zealand was in the numerous trends for that. Cooperative can be a powerful lever for action. And we know also that, for example, you have a very great researcher in New Zealand, like Elena Garneska, in order to better know the model. Because when you better know the model, you can help the people to do better. You have to training members, but also training employees, and develop support, specific support for cooperatives.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about the education space, because I know in New Zealand, we really struggle to get co-op education incorporated into mainstream education in terms of law, accounting, business. And so, which is crazy given that 18% of New Zealand's GDP by revenue. So we're working really hard with Elena and Professor Nicola Shadbolt to see how do we actually get that into business schools as opposed to just into the agri-science programs. I thought what you said before
and it's a great issue for Europe. Actually, we will organize network between a researcher and enterprise in order to give specific teaching or specific research for co-ops and for young leaders.
And that's, I think the unfortunate thing here in business schools is it gets mentioned as an alternative model, which is not helpful, because it's one of our most successful. So we're on a journey for that, and that's where it's really great working with the international academic community such as yourselves. I thought what you said about reorganisation of supply chain is really interesting. And I think that's a really big step change for a lot of these businesses. And it's interesting, going back to Mike Brown with his role with the Marlborough Grapes Growers Co-op, what they've started doing is that they're shipping the wine in the barrels and then bottling and market. So they're not having to import the glass to then export it back again. So it's taking that whole step out of the supply chain. So it's a really good example of where we're starting to get there, but it has to be done en masse. So I really like that. So you mentioned before that the government is getting involved. How is the government supporting the French co-op community? Is there any specific funding or specific regulation that is being put in place?
You have to know first that in fact when you are cooperative, agricultural cooperative in France, you don't pay the tax for your activity, because farmers pay the tax, but and the same times the subsidiaries, the law subsidiary, pay the tax, but not the co-ops. And so the government try to support cooperative by this type of exoneration. It's good in one way, because it recognizes the effort and the obligation of cooperative to support farmers. That commercial law don't have this obligation. But in the same times, for example, they are not allowed to have a fund or support for innovation. That makes no sense, you know. So the government decided two laws to support farmers in order to have a better price, because actually the supply chain is unbalanced in favor of the retail sectors that push a lot farmers that don't pay very well. And so the law try to rebalance that in favor of the farmers, and so helping cooperatives. But we have law, but is not enough in order to support cooperatives. Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting because in New Zealand it's not dissimilar in terms of co-ops don't pay the tax. The tax gets paid by the farmer on any profit. Can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me, Kelsey?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Maryline can't.
Wait. Yes, now,
okay.
Yes. I don't know why.
We can cut that bit out.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. So it's really interesting here in New Zealand. Not dissimilarly, any profits that are redistributed back out to the members. You can't hear me? No? Can you hear me now, Maryline? Your signal's not great.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll try again.
Sorry. Okay.
Hopefully we'll try and wrap this up fairly quickly. So here in New Zealand, it's quite interesting because in a similar vein to France, the farmers pay the tax on any profit redistribution, and the co-op only pays tax on any profit that they retain within the business. And to your point about government funding, so that the great thing with the Co-op Companies Act here in New Zealand is you can have up to 40% investment from external parties. The challenge is if those external parties aren't philosophically aligned with the co-op model, that's when it will end up demutualising. So we are trying to talk more and more to the government about doing PPPs in that public and private sector to support multiple business communities to really increase the the value and the opportunities that they provide in terms of improving lives and livelihoods within some of our lower socioeconomic group communities as well. So yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, as you say, there's challenges there. So based on having gone to the conference and everyone that you met, is there any potential areas of untapped opportunity here in New Zealand that you think we should be considering?
I think you have huge challenges because you are an island. I'm native from an island too in France, you know. I'm Corsican. So my island is in the Mediterranean Sea, and I know that the problem is all the time the transport. How you manage that? And you give an example on the wine industry. It could be exactly a way to find solution in order to reduce transport costs. And yeah, I'm very impressed by your landscape. It is fantastic to see how you maintain your sustainability and how you develop activities. We were yesterday in winery in around the Christchurch. Very interesting on organic wine. I suppose that you have, as you say, strengths and assets to put because you are sustainable. You can produce a dairy industry, and Frontier is a good example that is success to become a leader in the world. So I think the fact that you are in island is not redhibitoire. You can success. I suppose that more and more you join activity on circular economy, more and more you can produce food and produce also energy. You can also develop sustainable supply chain in order to produce for you, but also to export and to have a good deal that as you did in China, in order to to win market share. I think the way to work on cooperative and collective action could be a very powerful strategy for New Zealand.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying there, because we're talking to NZTE, which is the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise Scheme, and they are working with exporters. And one of the things that I see is that we could do so much better in terms of telling our co-op story to the world, because I think that whole piece around collaboration is so key. And so there's conversations underway, don't you worry. And I think your comment about us being an island, yes, it is challenging. It creates a number of challenges, but it also enables a number of opportunities that we can really tap into in terms of pest-free, et cetera, et cetera. So it's how do we get that collaboration going? And a lot of our bigger players are actually working very closely together in terms of their freight into the international market, which has been really successful. So COVID's actually forced a lot of that, which has been a really good outcome. So no, thank you so much for sharing with us your ideas and thoughts. In terms of, before we wrap up, have you got any other thoughts, Maryline, that you'd like to pass on?
Yes, if I can, yes. I would like to say that cooperatives are very particular model of enterprise, but very fantastic. Very fantastic because they increase the way for people to be sustainable, but for planet and people. And in fact, you combine economic, environment, and social, and it's very important. And it's also important that, in fact, it's the economic model of the future. They are all enterprise, but it's very new for future and very important. But in the same time, I would like to say that we need to be aware on their specific characteristic, because it's very important to educate young people, leaders, members, in order that they remain in capability to decide their own direction. You have to keep the power inside the enterprise and not to give the opportunity to other enterprise from Australia, for China, for America to arrive and to decide for you what you want to produce, what you want to eat, how to feed people and energy. So it's very important, I think, to develop research on cooperative, to have figures also to know how they develop, and also to work on the specific indicators. That is very important to measure the added value of cooperatives. which is different from the company governed by commercial law. And I think it's very important. It's a challenge for Europe, and I'm sure that it's a challenge for you. And we can work together in order to find solutions for a better world. So thank you very much for your invitation, and thank you for all the job that you made. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully for those of you who are listening to this recording, you found it useful, and there's a whole lot of learnings that we can take from our European counterparts, and we wish you all the well. Kia kaha.